one of your photos went viral. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was one of the protesters or rioters on top of a Waymo car, and it's all over the place right now.
Now, I mean, it's kind of a fine line between blending in and then having people turn on you. And I don't know if you wear a helmet. I don't know if you dress a certain way. I don't know if there's a kind of a urban camouflage. Like, I had an idea. One of my best ideas ever was a jumpsuit that had a plywood print on it. And when the city was all burnt down and the shit was going down and the mob turns on you, you turn against a piece of plywood that's in front of an old liquor store and you blend right in. The crowd goes right past you. So we're looking at the picture of the guy waving the Mexican flag on top of the what looks like a burning Waymo, or a Waymo with a burning Waymo behind him. But anyway, very, very iconic, very amazing. Is that just captured on your iPhone, or are you down there with real equipment?
That's just on my iPhone. Does great shots. It's versatile, has the portrait mode and all that. It keeps me light and on my feet. So with too much equipment, it makes it hard to move around. But it's funny you talking about being incognito. On Friday when I was at the VA clinic, and usually when I go out and I am documenting, I'm there as an independent journalist. I try in most cases, unless I think it's unsafe, to hide my identity because I'm not hiding who I am. I'm there to document. But I got recognized, and a swarm of protesters, surrounded me. They assaulted me and stole a couple of my items. But since then, Saturday and yesterday, I've been completely incognito for my own safety. And a couple other of my fellow journalists, Cam Higbee, Anthony Cabasa, they've had public, if you want to call them hits, or public messages put out on them with pictures, doxing them, basically informing the rest of the rioters and protesters, get these guys, get them out of there because of all the things that we're exposing. I think Antifa is starting to get in the mix. Yesterday, when I was taking videos of the rioters breaking up the sidewalk and collecting rocks, which they used for 2 hours to throw at police officers, the rioters started cracking down on people recording. And I imagine by today, they're going to be a lot more vigilant about making sure that independent journalists aren't covering things that make them look unsavory.
Well, it's always this weird dichotomy because they're there, they have a bullhorn, they're protesting, they're here, they're taking to the streets to be seen. And then when someone puts a microphone in front of their face, they push them off, and it was the same thing with all the free Palestine bullshit. As soon as somebody said, hey, can we talk to you about freeing Palestine? They're like, get out of my face. And it's like, well, I don't really get it, because if you have a point, then make your point. Like, it happens all the time where people go, well, why didn't Anthony Fauci go on Tucker Carlson's show? And the answer is, well, he didn't want to be treated unfairly. It's like, well, make your point. You don't have to be treated. I'll go on The View. I'm not worried about being treated unfairly. I'll make my point. And as long as you don't, edit it, then we'll be fine. Or it's like a hostile environment. Like, look, if your point, whatever your point is, make it. And we're watching video of stuff you took, I'm guessing, which is people grabbing rocks and throwing. People don't really realize that it doesn't take a bullet or a knife wound to kill a person. If you're riding a moped and someone hits you in the head with a rock, you're dead.
Done.
That's how it goes.
These are 10, 20-pound rocks that they were throwing 20 feet down off the overpass. One of the rocks actually ended up striking a police officer, but they were screaming, aim for the head, aim for the head. And I don't want to generalize who these rioters or who these protesters are, because it's such a big mix and it's growing every single day. But, so many people out there I was hearing saying, oh, we're just here, school's out, and oh, it's a Sunday, I'm bored. And so while there are a lot of rioters out there that are there because they're passionate about opposing Trump and they really care about the immigration issue, I suspect there's a large amount of people that are out there that are, in their teens or early 20s that are vaguely liberal, or that are just, they happen to lean left and have nothing better to do, and so they're getting in on the action.
Yeah.
And they're emboldened. It makes sense. The police officers are not engaging the rioters.
Yeah.
They set up a perimeter. They wait for hours and hours and hours until nightfall or until the rioters move to a different location, and then they will lightly engage. But when people are saying, oh, the escalation, it's getting to a point where the escalation is them not engaging the rioters because it's just giving them this sense of we can do whatever the F we want. And as you can see on screen, this is the result. Bars are being broken into, gas stations, parking lot kiosks burning down. So it's really getting out of control. And for all the people that are saying, well, this is just downtown LA, this isn't widespread. It's like, listen, LA is a big place. Most people in LA were having a normal Sunday, but that has nothing to do with the havoc and the terror that the people and the citizens of downtown LA and adjacent cities are experiencing.
Yeah, I mean, the sad thing is a show of force is really what these people need because they will just do as much as we let them do. And, it's now gone weird with the Democratic politicians that have to sort of take their side. I mean, I basically said, look, I just spent 4 years being lectured by Democrats that there was no National Guard for January 6th and Trump should have dispatched a National Guard because that would have prevented all this. Now they don't want the National Guard here because they're incendiary. Like, is the National Guard good or bad, bitch? Like, which is it? Which is it? It could have prevented the greatest attack since Pearl Harbor, which, by the way, Pelosi should have okayed the National Guard and Miriam Bowser should have okayed the National Guard 3 days ahead when they got the information that we conveniently forgot about. But okay. But is the National Guard good or bad? And the answer is, well, it's good when we can use it for our argument, then bad when we can use it for a different argument. Also, a bunch of guys in uniforms with weapons, I would argue, does not incite the crowd. It tends to clean up the crowd. And also, it's not incendiary. Okay, let's just do your math. Let's do the math. Okay, for the sake of argument, there's 500 cops. All right. Or for the sake of argument, there's 200 cops. Okay. And then somebody says, how about we get another 500 National Guardsmen in here? And then you go, well, that would inflame the situation and agitate the people. Okay. Well, according to your math, if we got rid of the 200 cops, the whole thing would go away. Because if 200 men in uniform is causing some agitation and 1,000 men in uniform is going to make them spin out, well, then why don't we get rid of the 200 men in uniform and it would all go away, right? Or would it get worse? And it would get worse. Now shut up. Sorry, Aldo.
That's what they keep saying, too. They keep saying, well, the LAPD, they can handle riots. They've handled the biggest riots in the country for the history of our country and the history of our nation. Well, you can't have it both ways. Either we need the National Guard or we need some sort of external force to come in and aid them, or the LAPD can handle it themselves. But by the looks of it, they can't. So you got to choose one or the other. You can't just say we don't want help and then continue letting the rioters just run amok on the streets. You either got to handle it or you got to accept help. But not accepting help, I feel like, is unacceptable.
Yeah, and you were talking about, some of your colleagues being doxxed and, covering your face and so on and so forth. And Hakeem Jeffries made this asinine statement a couple days ago about ICE not showing their faces and stuff. It's really, it's interesting. It's an interesting thing. I guess Trump just baits them into taking super retarded stances. We capture it all on film, and then next time there's an election, we're just going to roll out all you guys saying in color and in digital copies a bunch of insane anti-American stuff. I guess that's what he's doing. I think he's baiting them.
He's the king at it. He's the master, if you want to put it that way.
Well, let's play devil's advocate here for a second, because I've been in Los Angeles my whole life. I work construction a lot of my life, and so you work with Hispanic workers. I mean, you work with dudes who work, who come here to work. I never knew which guys were legal, which guys were illegal. The guys I worked with were always just hardworking dudes, and they got along and they were fine and they had enough English and they were this they're just hardworking construction dudes with families and stuff like that. So I'm not going to make an argument for anybody being here illegally, but I also wouldn't make an argument if I wouldn't go to my son, hey, move to Canada, and if they give you any shit, tell me, I'll throw a brick at them. You know what I mean? It's like they got rules. They're sovereign. They have a law. They have a border. No one gets to just move to Canada. And every liberal asshole in the world would understand if I just went, I'm moving to Canada. Fuck Canada. They go, no, you don't live there. You got to get documented. You got to figure it out. They have laws. Sorry. Like, they would understand that concept. They would understand the concept if I said, I'm just moving to Mexico. They'd understand.
Right.
So I don't want anybody here illegally, but I do have an order of people I'd like to get rid of. And I want the hardcore guys, the human traffickers and the gangbangers and stuff. They can go first. And then at some point, I'll get to the guy who I worked construction with all those years ago, and then I'll have certain questions like, how long? 20 some odd years. You pay taxes? Okay. Do you use the system much? Are you a burden on the system? Your kids speaking English? Like, I would have a little wiggle room with those guys. Let's go bad to benign.
Reagan gave amnesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. A lot of people think that, a lot of the right-wingers or conservatives are heartless. And, what I tell people is I actually have a lot of sympathy when you hear these stories of, a mother and teenager were pulled over and now they're being deported. I do have sympathy. It's a horrible situation, but it would be almost like if I started driving at the age of 12 and I never got a license, and then I got pulled over at 25 and said, well, I've been driving for, 13 years. Why are you pulling me over now? It's like, well, my sympathy is that the kid can drive. He's doing great, but he never took the responsibility to go and get his driver's license. It's an unfortunate situation, but the onus is on the person. It's not on the system for enforcing those laws. And a lot of these stories that we're hearing, it's, they're getting deported after being pulled over. And then you read further down, and it's the police officers were unable to communicate with either of them because they speak no English. And you find out they've been here for 40 years. And it just makes you question, like, where are these people, in what communities have they been able to function for 20, 30 years? So it's just emblematic of a much bigger problem. But I think you're right. Yeah, I want to start with the criminals, and then we'll work our way down to the construction workers for sure.
Well, you're right in that when you come over, when you recreate your homeland, and you're not really doing yourself any favors. So you flee Mexico, or you flee Nicaragua, or you flee El Salvador, or you flee anywhere, Ghana. You just flee because you have a system there, a mentality, and so on and so forth. And then you come here and you essentially recreate it. And then when you drive through, like, I've lived in the Valley my whole life, when you go to real deep Valley, Mexico, and you hear the music and you see the garbage and the graffiti and the sort of world, you go, well, this isn't any better than your old place. You just you recreated your old place here, and that's where the assimilation part comes in. We're looking at I don't know what we're looking at. Looking at a sign. I can't read it.
Born and raised in Los Angeles. Deport me? Where are you going to deport me? Back to the hood?
Yeah, I know.
Pretty clever.
Everyone's righteous, by the way, now. But all right, you can stop the pictures for a second. Yes, for the good of the group that is fleeing something and coming here, I would argue, do not recreate what you're fleeing. Embrace this, join this. There's a reason you want in. And that reason is because for whatever reason, our system is better than your system. So do not do a facsimile of your system inside of our system. Join our system.
Right. I don't think fruit stands and different flavors of tacos is worth the civil unrest that we're seeing. No amount of culinary diversity is worth civil unrest and is worth millions of dollars in public property damage. I'm going to take the homogenous society over culinary experiences every day of the week.